Every long-running anime eventually has an onsen episode. Characters who've spent months keeping careful distance from each other end up in the same hot spring, and something shifts that couldn't happen anywhere else in the show. Most people write this off as an excuse for fan service, but there's more going on underneath it. Japan has a name for what's actually happening in that water. Hadaka no Tsukiai, the naked relationship. The idea that removing your clothes removes something else along with them, whatever status, rank, or self-presentation you were carrying just moments before. It's platonic and practiced deliberately among coworkers, neighbors, and classmates at bathhouses across the country. The mechanics are completely on the nose. Before entering the water, your watch, wallet, phone, and everything else that marks who you are outside the bath goes into a locker identical to everyone else's. Then comes KKU, the mandatory rinse before entering the shared water, the same ritual for every person regardless of what they do outside the building. By the time anyone actually steps in, they've already been reduced to the same starting point twice. None of this waits for the water, either. Onsen doesn't just mean the hot spring itself, it's also the word for the whole trip built around the travel, inn, shared meal, and changing into appropriate attire, all of it. The bath is simply the most literal version of what the entire trip is designed to do. In episode 6 of Uramichi Oniisan, the cynical Uramichi finds out his company is taking a mandatory overnight trip to an onsen, and he's losing 2 days off he never agreed to give up. The moment he reaches his room, one of his coworkers suggests a pillow fight and trading scary stories, leading the others to realize that he's never actually had a sleepover or a school trip like this before. Nobody makes it a big deal. They just warmly agree to make sure he gets the real version of what these kind of trips are meant to offer. Later, the women are in the hot spring on the other side of the resort, casually complaining about their partners and debating the dateability of one of the men just out of earshot. None of it would have come out back at the office. All of it flows here, not just due to the water, but because the whole trip was built to help everyone bond. This openness has a long history in Japan, although that history has not been kind. Edo period bathhouses were largely mixed gender, and Hadaka no Tsukiai was practiced completely in the open. When an expedition led by Commodore Perry arrived in the 1850s, American accounts describe him as visibly startled that men and women bathed side by side without a second thought. Within 2 decades, in 1869, the Meiji government banned mixed bathing in urban areas entirely, partly in response to how it was perceived in the West. Japan hadn't suddenly decided the practice was immoral. It decided looking modern to foreign trading partners mattered more than an old, ordinary comfort. Even the architecture of a traditional bathhouse hints at what was being managed. The Bandai, a raised platform positioned at the entrance, let a single attendant watch both the men's and women's sides while collecting the spring's fee. A small, built-in Panopticon sitting right at the door. And it still couldn't do the one thing nearly every other Japanese institution is built to do. It couldn't track who anyone actually was once they were inside, or account for what people say once they've forgotten they're being watched at all. In Botan, Kamiina fully blossoms when drunk. Alcohol already loosens the same grip on composure the tub does, working its way through before anything real gets said. In episode 9, Botan and Ibuki go on a trip to Glamp while watching the stars, but Botan spends the whole trip turning over the memory of Ibuki sharing that she was special to her, without knowing if her own idea of special matches. Upon arriving at the site, Botan orders drinks before even looking at the room, then tells Ibuki there's something she needs to say, but holds off on speaking it. It isn't until they're sitting together in an open-air bath that either of them finally gets there. Ibuki asks how many more nights like this one they even have left, since friendships don't last forever, and admits she wants Botan entirely to herself. Crying, Botan doesn't ask to be more than friends. She asks if they can stop being friends altogether, the same idea turned inside out. Ibuki agrees. Neither of them manages the direct version of a confession, but the tub gets them close enough that they don't need to. That kind of surrender used to be easier to stumble into. It didn't require a trip, plan, or waiting for the right night. The government wasn't the only force working against it. Most neighborhoods used to have a Sento, a regular local bathhouse using heated tap water instead of natural spring water, built for exactly this kind of everyday convenience. In 1963, fewer than 60% of Japanese homes had a private bath. By 2008, that number had passed 95%. Nobody banned the Sento this time. It simply became unnecessary. At their peak in the late 1960s, roughly 18,000 Sento operated across the country. Today, fewer than 1,600 remain, a decline of about 90%. Some younger Japanese people now say they're uncomfortable being seen naked at all, while others worry something real is being lost without it, a concept called skinship. The belief that physical closeness builds a kind of trust nothing else quite replicates. But the need behind all of it didn't disappear, it just moved. While neighborhood Sento have been closing for decades, onsen tourism, hot springs people travel specifically to reach, has surged over that same stretch of time. The daily, ordinary version of Hadaka no Tsukiai is fading from Japanese life. The deliberate version, the one worth planning a trip around, is doing just fine. Which means the anime onsen episode was never really nostalgic for something already gone. It was always depicting exactly what the tradition looks like now, not a routine stop on the way home, but somewhere you have to choose to go. Nudity in a Japanese bath was never treated as shameful the way it often is elsewhere. It's closer to the opposite, a quiet, practical equality. Once the clothes are gone, so is the reason to keep pretending. But not every mark that surfaces in that water is about status. Some are about what a person has actually survived. Misato isn't just Asuka's roommate in Neon Genesis Evangelion. She's Asuka's commanding officer at Nerve and her legal guardian. In episode 10, after a dangerous mission, Misato takes Asuka and Shinji to a hot spring as a reward. In the bath, Asuka notices a long scar across Misato's chest, left over from the disaster called Second Impact. Misato explains it plainly. Asuka asks if she knows about her past too. Misato says it's part of the job, then adds that it's all ancient history, and neither of them should let it bother them anymore. It's a comforting line. It's also not true. Nothing else in the show suggests either woman has actually processed any of it. But for one scene, Rank disappears completely, and what's left are two wounded people, talking about their lives in a way they wouldn't anywhere else. Golden Kamuy finds something quieter in the same setting. In episode 21, Sugimoto visits a hot spring and gets a massage from a blind masseur who remarks on the sheer number of scars covering his body, wondering aloud how he survived them all. It leads Sugimoto into a real conversation with a Serpa about an Ainu belief that a soul only leaves the body once its business in this world is finished. Sugimoto jokes that it would take a far bigger wound than any of his scars to take his. The Serpa's answer is quieter. His wounds didn't kill him because he still has something left undone. The rooftop in Japan was a place that closed. Nobody chose to lose it. The door just got locked and stayed that way. The bath took a different path entirely. It didn't get shut down so much as it got harder to stumble into by accident, pushed out of daily life and into something people now have to seek out on purpose. Different histories, same quiet relief waiting on the other side of both of them. That relief also turns up somewhere else, with a spoon rather than a tub, where an entirely different kind of performance falls apart over dessert. That's Tuesday,